The document was written by the Muslim Brotherhood in 1982 and titled The Project. It is a global vision of a worldwide strategy for political Islam taking down the West, and it was later followed up by more writings in 1991 on how to organize all of their resources and get them working towards the same goal. The first document talks about creating organizations and infiltrating others, like town councils and labor unions, in order to establish dialogue at a local level with those who work for the cause. Remember how we were wondering why our labor unions were supporting the Arab Spring, and then the Arab Spring was helping in Wisconsin? This is the answer. The cause, according to this project, according to the Muslim Brotherhood, the reason why they'll work with anyone is they are going to dedicate themselves to the establishment of an Islamic state in parallel with gradual efforts aimed at gaining control of local power centers through institutional action. So, in other words, the caliphate. This is the realization that they're never going to be able to achieve this goal by force. It's only through progressivism, gradual process, gradual baby steps. They sought to earn the trust in local communities to, quote, construct social, economic, scientific, and health institutions to penetrate the domain of social services in order to be in contact with the people and serve them by means of Islamic institutions, and then later infiltrate politics, quote, liberty to function politically with each country according to local circumstances without, however, participating in a process which makes a decision which would be contrary to the text of Sharia. The manifestos that we will show you tonight encourage Islamic groups to put aside their differences and work together. But more strikingly, it also says this: to accept the principle of temporary cooperation between Islamic movements and nationalist movements in the broad sphere and on common ground such as struggle against colonialism. If that word doesn't jump out at you, I don't know what will. Where have we heard? Who has studied anti-colonialist stuff? They join where they can. We've heard this from one place. We've heard this on that darn chalkboard that I did so many years ago now at Fox. But that was my gut. This is the proof. In this document, these two documents, they also talk about creating think tanks and communications organizations in order to shape their message. One of the key themes in this document is, quote, listen to this, to adopt the Palestinian cause as part of a worldwide Islamic plan, with the policy plan and by the means of jihad, to nourish a sentiment of rancor with respect to the Jews and refuse all coexistence, and finally, unwavering support of anyone engaging in jihad, to build bridges between movements engaged in the jihad in the Muslim world. In other words, they'll work with anyone who wants to destroy Israel. They'll connect with anyone. This includes financial support. That is in plan to establish the caliphate. And their plan goes like this: befriend. Just be innocuous. Just befriend people. Then infiltrate locally, nationally, globally. Then the last step is support violent jihad. America, I say this hoping that I am wrong, but on this particular long journey together, you have seen my record. I say to you with all earnestness and all urgency, I believe step 1 and step 2 are complete. I believe I know now why Occupy Wall Street has fallen apart. I believe it is in the hands of the Muslim Brotherhood. Occupy Wall Street will be the reinforcements that come later. We are seeing the move into phase 3 happen right now in front of us in real time. I encourage you, I beg you, to read the document online. It is now being posted at theblaze.com/theproject. You can have these documents, and as you go through them, you will be surprised at how many more of the goals have already been accomplished. I encourage you to keep this in mind whenever you watch the news. The mainstream media, they are so far in the bag, they will not connect the dots on any of this. But this doesn't take a genius to put together. You read this once and you will see what's going on. You will understand what's happening in New York this week. They completely miss the boat on stories like this. In fact, here's a story that's happening in New York City. Happened in New York City on Sunday. And if they would just listen, they would know what's going on. It was the 27th annual United American Muslim Day Parade in New York City. During the parade, there was an article that was handed out all the way down the streets of New York. It featured a black flag flying over the White House, and that black flag was being also waved at the parade. Now, that black flag, have you seen it before? Yes. It's the same exact black flag flown by radicals in the Middle East as they took over our embassies and killed our ambassador. At the end of the parade route, there was a stage and speakers, and an imam got up. He called for the same thing that our White House is now calling for, a sort of blasphemy law. We'll get into this one in a minute, and it is crucial that you understand. I'm also going to show you how those three images fit here. These three images, how they're all related. But before I do that, let me go back to the parade. There was an English woman that got up at the parade at the end, and she slammed the United States with a poem that talked about growing the next generation of martyrs in Muslim women's wombs. Listen.
We carry unborn martyrs in our wombs and drop bombs in here, because all that we blow up is minds in mind fields. They resonate in refugee camps that are housed by Zionist Nazis.
Now, if you look at this film, you can see this film on TheBlaze. You see right here, you'll see a state senator from New York. He's leaving in disgust. He's very, very uncomfortable, and he just gets up and walks out. He said he was offended by the speech, but he didn't elaborate at all. We reached out for comment, but so far we can't get him to go on record with anything. At least he had the decency to get up and leave. Here are Islamic leaders spouting hate. They are the products of the groups that are created under the Muslim Brotherhood project. All of these groups that you see here, they have massive influence on our media and our government and our institutions all across the country, big and small. They have all been influenced by the Muslim Brotherhood, and it's all in these documents. Nearly every one of these leaders who surface here in the United States have likely been influenced by one of these groups. This parade in New York City Sunday was just one example. Let me give you another one. You may not have ever heard of this guy, but you need to. Michelle Malkin, who is one of the bravest reporters I have seen in America, reports today that he visited the White House on March 30th, 2012. He met with the president's faith-based and neighborhood partnerships director. This meeting was just days before the White House met with members from the Muslim Brotherhood, which will chill you to the bone after you see the project. But back to him. Who is he? Well, he's a guy now in the White House who has been identified by the FBI as a Muslim Brotherhood operative before moving to America in the 1970s. And according to him, has been, quote, active in the Islamic work in North America, which continues to this day. He was the first director of training in the Muslim Students Association. He's the founding member of the International Institute for Islamic Thought and a recipient of the ISNA Community Service Award. All of these are Muslim Brotherhood front groups. He was specifically named by the Muslim Brotherhood. Let me say this again. He was specifically named by the Muslim Brotherhood as a key player in their grand jihad strategy of infiltration from within, and he is meeting at the White House. Michelle Malkin is one of the very few brave people covering this. She knows it inside and out. We asked her to be a part of this program, but she's a Fox News contributor, which prohibits her from appearing on any other networks. But she did send this statement in. Pay attention to this White House visitor, she said. Under the guise of religious tolerance and community organizing, this front man and his brethren serve as a U.S.-based advance team for Islamic terror financiers and propagandists. Al-Talib represents the ultimate fulfillment of the global Muslim Brotherhood 4-decade-long plan to infiltrate America. Now, remember when there was an uproar over the Ground Zero Mosque? This one will become clear to you over the next 2 nights. The argument boiled down to this, and it was so childish. If you don't want them to build it, you just have to hate Muslims and you're an Islamophobe, which, by the way, is part of the plan. Any reasonable investigation or background into those trying to build this massive Islamic center was immediately shut down, and zero common sense was applied to the situation. My stance at the time was, well, wait a minute, you can't just, run out and say, no, you can't build an Islamic center, because then somebody can say you can't build a church. Let's just look in to make sure that there aren't any problems before we give anybody a green light to build anything like this. The president's immediate response was, people are haters. Remember? Well, it turns out there is a small problem. These groups want to overthrow the government of the United States and replace it with a global caliphate. And in these documents, you will see that those centers play a role as a hub, that the spokes come out. Perhaps if we had known about the project, like our president did and does know, we would have known this.